The great planet of Valoria shined like a jewel in the blackness of space. Its sky was made of shimmering silver clouds, and its cities were built from crystal towers that glowed softly in the sunlight. Every visitor said Valoria looked like a dream, a place that didn't belong to the cold and dark galaxy around it. For humans, Valoria was still new. Contact between Earth and the Valorians had only happened a few years ago, after a long period of silence between stars. Both sides had been cautious, but now the Valorian royal family had finally invited a human delegation to visit the capital city. Ilarion. Among the small group of human guests was Elias Ward, a quiet engineer from Earth. He wasn't a diplomat or a soldier. He was there to study the advanced energy systems that powered the alien world. Elias had always preferred machines over crowds, but this time, he found himself standing among nobles and dignitaries in a huge crystal courtyard, trying not to stare at everything. The air shimmered with soft blue light. Music that sounded like wind chimes filled the garden. Dozens of alien guests stood proudly, their silver and blue robes fluttering in the gentle breeze. Valorians were tall and graceful, their skin faintly glowing like moonlight. Elias couldn't help but feel clumsy and plain among them. At the front of the courtyard stood the royal balcony, a high archway made of living crystal. The human delegation was told that the royal family would appear there to greet them. Elias's fellow ambassador, an older woman named Dr. Mira Hale, leaned toward him and whispered, "Remember, don't stare at the royals too long. They consider that rude." Elias nodded politely, though his curiosity burned stronger with each second. He had heard stories of the Valorian royal bloodline, said to be descended from the first beings who tamed the planet's wild storms. But when the sound of soft trumpets filled the air, every thought in his head vanished. From the glowing archway above, 3 figures appeared. The first was the king, tall and dignified, wearing robes that sparkled like sunlight on water. The second was the queen, graceful and calm, with eyes like starlight. And then came the third figure, the princess. She stepped forward, and time itself seemed to pause. Her name, whispered among the crowd, was Princess Soraya Velarine. Her hair shimmered like molten silver, catching the light and scattering it across the courtyard. Her skin was pale gold, smooth and radiant, and her eyes were the color of a clear blue sea. Elias had never seen eyes like that, full of light and mystery. Without thinking, he whispered softly, "She's the most beautiful princess I've ever seen." He didn't expect anyone to hear him. The crowd was large, and his voice was barely above a breath. But in that exact moment, something strange happened. Princess Soraya turned her head. She looked directly toward the human section of the courtyard, straight at Elias. Her gaze met his with quiet intensity. For a heartbeat, everything around him faded, the music, the chatter, even the wind. He felt something deep inside, like a pulse of energy running through his body. Then she smiled, a small, curious smile, before turning back toward her parents. Elias froze in place. His heart raced. Dr. Hale gave him a puzzled look. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing," Elias said quickly, though his voice was shaky. "Just thought she looked this way." The ceremony continued with speeches and greetings, but Elias barely heard any of it. He kept his eyes lowered, afraid to draw more attention. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the princess had truly looked right at him, as if she had somehow heard his whisper. When the ceremony ended, the guests were escorted through the city to the royal guest quarters. The buildings looked like they were grown from light itself. Every wall glowed faintly, every floor felt warm beneath the feet. Elias walked quietly, his thoughts tangled and restless. That night in his room, he looked out at the glowing skyline of Ilarion. He could still see the royal palace from afar, a shining spire rising toward the stars. The moment replayed in his mind again and again. Her face, that smile, those eyes. "Get it together, Elias," he muttered to himself. "She's an alien princess and you're a human engineer." But as he turned to go to bed, he noticed something strange. There was a faint glow coming from his wrist. He rolled up his sleeve and stared. A small pale blue symbol had appeared just under his skin, shaped like a circle with a line through it, glowing softly like moonlight. It didn't hurt, but it pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "What in the world?" Elias whispered. The light faded after a few seconds, but the mark remained. Confused and a little frightened, he touched it gently. It felt warm, alive. That night, when he finally slept, his dreams were filled with visions of the princess. He saw her standing in the middle of a storm, surrounded by light and wind. He saw her eyes filled with sadness, as if calling for help from across a distance he couldn't reach. When he woke, the mark was still there. The next morning, the delegation was taken to tour the Royal Energy Core, a vast power system that supplied energy to the entire city. Elias focused on his work, taking notes and measurements, trying to ignore the strange mark on his wrist. But every now and then it pulsed again, faintly, as if reacting to something nearby. While he studied one of the glowing conduits, a soft voice spoke behind him. "You do not belong here." Elias turned quickly. Standing there was a tall Valorian guard with silver armor. His expression was cold. "The royal palace is not for humans to wander freely," the guard said. "I'm part of the engineering team," Elias replied calmly, showing his identification badge. "Authorized by the council?" The guard frowned but said nothing more. He walked away, leaving Elias uneasy. Something told him that not everyone on this world welcomed humans with open arms. Later that day, as the team prepared to leave the facility, Elias felt the mark on his wrist pulse again, much stronger this time. He turned and saw someone standing at the end of the corridor. It was her, Princess Soraya. She was alone, her silver hair catching the light from the crystal walls. When their eyes met again, Elias froze. She took a step closer, her expression calm but curious. "I heard your voice yesterday," she said softly. Her accent was smooth, her words delicate but clear. From across the courtyard, Elias didn't know what to say. "You heard me?" he asked, shocked. She nodded. "Your thought reached me. I do not know how. No human has ever touched my mind before." She looked down at his wrist. Her eyes widened when she saw the glowing mark, the bond mark. She whispered almost to herself. "It has appeared again. Bond mark?" Elias repeated. "What does that mean?" But before she could answer, footsteps echoed down the hall. Soraya looked around quickly, her calm face turning serious. "I cannot speak here," she said in a low voice. "Meet me tonight by the lower gardens. No guards will see you there." And before Elias could reply, she turned and disappeared down a side corridor, her silver hair vanishing into the light. Elias stood there for a long moment, heart pounding. He looked at his glowing wrist again, and the symbol pulsed softly as if answering her voice. He didn't know what was happening, but somehow he knew his life had just changed forever. The night air of Valoria was soft and glowing. Tiny light particles drifted through the gardens like fireflies, and the trees shimmered with blue veins of energy under their bark. Elias walked carefully along the garden path, his steps silent on the silver grass. The words of the princess kept repeating in his head. "Meet me tonight by the lower gardens." He had almost convinced himself that she wouldn't come. Maybe she had only been curious, maybe he had misunderstood. But the mark on his wrist still pulsed with a steady rhythm, faint but alive, as if guiding him toward something important. When he reached the fountain at the garden's heart, the air changed. The gentle hum of the city faded, replaced by the soft sound of running water. Then, from behind a tall crystal tree, Princess Soraya appeared. Her gown was simple this time, made of a soft white fabric that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Her long silver hair moved gently in the wind, and her eyes glowed with calm light. "You came," she said softly. Elias bowed slightly, unsure what to say. I had questions," he said. "And I think you have answers," Soraya smiled faintly. "Then we both seek the same thing." They sat near the fountain. The water inside it glowed blue, and strange fish swam within, their scales like tiny mirrors. Elias glanced down at his wrist where the symbol still glowed faintly. "What is this?" he asked quietly. "You called it a bond mark," Soraya nodded. "Long ago our ancestors were not separate from other races. They could connect through energy, through thought, emotion, and life force. But over thousands of years that ability faded. The last recorded bond mark appeared over 300 years ago. It forms only when two beings share the same energy pattern, a perfect resonance." "Resonance," Elias repeated slowly. "Like vibration or frequency?" "Yes," she said. "Every living being has its own energy signature. Two souls that match create a connection, one that allows them to sense each other even from far away. Elias frowned, looking at the glowing mark. But how could that happen between us? I'm human. You're Valorian, she finished for him. Yes, it should be impossible. That is why I wanted to see you. Her tone was calm, but Elias could sense something deeper beneath it. Confusion mixed with curiosity, and maybe even hope. She reached out, almost touching his wrist, but stopped an inch away. When I heard your voice during the ceremony, she said softly. It wasn't sound. It was a thought that reached me, clear and warm. I turned because it felt familiar, as if I already knew that voice. Elias met her gaze. I thought I imagined it. No, Soraya whispered. You didn't. For a long moment they sat in silence. The fountain shimmered between them, the soft sound of running water filling the space. Elias wanted to ask more, but Soraya spoke again first. You must keep this secret, she said seriously. If the council learns of the bond mark, they will think it is dangerous. They do not believe humans and Valorians should mix energy. Some of them already question your presence here. Elias nodded slowly. I've noticed. Your guards don't seem happy about us. They fear change, Soraya said, her tone distant. My people hold on to old traditions. They believe Valorians must remain pure, untouched by outsiders. But I see things differently. She turned her gaze toward the glowing towers in the distance. The galaxy is vast. We can learn much from others. And perhaps, she paused, her voice softening, perhaps our hearts are not so different. Elias didn't know how to reply. He looked at her, studying the calm grace in her movements, the light that seemed to flow from her very skin. There was strength and gentleness in her at the same time, something he had never seen before. Soraya, he said quietly, testing her name for the first time. If this bond means something, what should we do about it? She looked back at him, her expression unreadable. I do not know, she admitted. But I feel that our meeting is not by chance. Later that night, after she left, Elias sat alone by the fountain. The garden glowed softly, the night air cool against his skin. He looked again at the mark on his wrist, the faint blue light now fading to a soft shimmer. For the first time in his life, he felt connected to something far greater than himself. He didn't sleep much that night. When dawn came, the delegation was summoned to the Royal Council Hall for discussions about trade and research. The hall was enormous, shaped like a spiral, with walls of living crystal that shifted color as voices echoed through it. Elias stood quietly behind the human ambassador while negotiations took place. The Valorian council members sat in a semicircle, each wearing long robes marked with symbols of their noble houses. The princess sat among them, silent and graceful. At one point, her eyes met Elias's from across the hall. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. He could feel her presence, not just see her. A quiet warmth brushing against his thoughts like a whisper in the mind. Are you well? A voice echoed faintly inside his head. Elias blinked in surprise. The words weren't spoken aloud. They were inside him, clear and calm. He looked toward Soraya again. Her lips hadn't moved, but her eyes were on him. You can hear me? He thought. Her faint smile was her only answer. The connection was real. Somehow the bond mark allowed them to share thoughts. Elias felt a mix of amazement and fear. If anyone noticed, if anyone found out, they would both be in trouble. The meeting ended peacefully, but tension hung in the air. As the humans left the hall, Elias noticed a group of Valorian nobles whispering together and watching him closely. One of them, a tall man with dark blue markings on his face, met Elias's gaze with cold eyes. He wore the crest of House Dareth, known to oppose human contact. Elias felt a chill as the man turned away. That evening, Elias was invited to the Royal Library to continue his research. The library was a maze of glowing books and ancient devices. While he studied a holographic scroll, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned, and once again it was Soraya. I wanted to show you something, she said, holding a small crystal orb. Inside it, tiny lights moved like stars. This is an old record of the bond marks. It shows pairs of connected souls through our history. Elias took the orb carefully. Images formed in the air, two glowing figures standing together, their wrists marked with the same symbol as his. The images flickered between different pairs, Valorians and even a few unknown beings. The last bond mark, Soraya said softly, was between a Valorian and a wanderer from another world. The connection gave them strength and understanding beyond both species. But the council feared it and they were forced apart. Elias frowned. So this has happened before? Yes, she said. But it was buried in history. As they studied the orb, Elias noticed the mark on his wrist glowing brighter, and a matching light appeared faintly on Saraya's. Their energies pulsed in rhythm. She looked at him in surprise. It responds when we are close, she whispered. It recognizes us as one. Before Elias could speak, the library doors opened with a loud sound. 2 guards stepped in, the same ones from before. Their expressions were sharp. Princess Saraya, one said, bowing stiffly. The council requests your presence immediately. Saraya straightened, her calm mask returning. Tell them I will attend soon. The guard's eyes shifted briefly to Elias, then back to her. Be careful, Your Highness, he said, his tone cool. Some connections bring danger. When they left, Saraya looked troubled. They are watching us, she said quietly. We must be careful. If they learn of the bond, they may try to separate us. Elias looked down at his wrist. Then maybe we should figure out what this really means before they do. Saraya nodded. Tomorrow night. Meet me again, near the old archives under the palace. There is something there I need you to see. Then, with one last look, she left the room, her glowing hair fading into the light. Elias stood alone among the ancient scrolls, his heart beating fast. He looked again at the symbol on his wrist, glowing softly in time with his pulse. Whatever was happening between him and the princess was no accident. It was the beginning of something far greater, and deep inside he felt it, a quiet certainty that their connection was about to change not only their lives, but the fate of both their worlds. The palace of Valoria stood silent in the night, its glowing towers shining against the silver sky. Below the royal chambers, deep under the grand structure, ancient archives waited in darkness. It was here, far from the eyes of nobles and guards, that Elias Ward now walked carefully through narrow passages made of crystal and stone. Princess Saraya had told him to meet her there. He carried a small light sphere in his hand, its glow reflecting across the walls. The air smelled of dust and time. Old machines rested in silence, covered in thin layers of shining particles. Strange symbols ran along the walls, written in the old Valorian language one Elias could barely understand. When he reached a large chamber at the end of the tunnel, Saraya was already there. She wore a light cloak instead of her usual royal dress, her silver hair tied behind her shoulders. A faint blue light shone from a crystal on the floor beside her. You came, she said quietly. I said I would. Elias replied, smiling slightly. What is this place? She looked around the dark chamber. These are the old archives. They were built by our ancestors before the royal houses existed. Most people have forgotten this level of the palace even exists, but the knowledge stored here might explain what is happening to us. Elias placed the light sphere beside hers, and together they filled the chamber with soft light. In the center stood a large crystal pillar, covered in glowing lines. Saraya touched its surface gently, and it came alive with shifting images, symbols, faces, and flashes of ancient history. This pillar records the story of the bond mark, she explained. It shows how it first appeared and why it disappeared from our people. The pillar's light formed an image in the air, 2 glowing figures standing side by side, joined by a line of energy between their wrists. A calm voice spoke in the old Valorian tongue, and Saraya translated softly for Elias. When hearts align beyond worlds, when minds share truth without fear, a bridge forms, not by blood, but by spirit. Elias listened in silence. The words sounded old but powerful. So this bond, he began slowly, it's more than just a mark. Yes, Saraya said. It's a union of souls. A bond that can transfer thought, emotion, and sometimes even energy. It was once considered sacred, but after the Great Division, when our people became proud and distant, the royal houses called it dangerous. They said such connections would weaken us, so they erased all records of it. Elias frowned. And now it's happening again in between us, she nodded. Which is why we must be careful. Before Elias could ask another question, the ground trembled slightly. The lights flickered. Saraya looked up, alert. What was that? Elias asked. Trouble, Saraya said softly. I have heard whispers for weeks. There are those in the council who wish to end our friendship with Earth. They believe humans will poison our way of life. If they learn about our bond, they could use it as an excuse to strike first. The tremor faded, but Elias could sense tension in the air. You think someone is planning something? Soraya's expression was serious. Yes, a noble house, perhaps House Dareth. They hate the idea of humans stepping into our cities. They might even try to overthrow my father to stop any alliance. Elias's eyes widened. That's a rebellion, Soraya nodded. I fear so. But I have no proof, only whispers. She turned toward the glowing pillar again, touching a new symbol. The air filled with faint blue lines forming what looked like a map of the palace. There is something hidden here, she said. Something old. A network of energy lines beneath the palace. Forgotten technology from the ancient builders. If we can access it, we may be able to protect the royal family if an attack happens. Elias studied the holographic map, his engineer's mind working fast. Those look like conduits, he said. Energy channels. If they're still functional, they could power a defensive system, maybe even a shield. Soraya looked at him with hope. Can you repair them? I can try, Elias said. But I'll need access to the lower reactors. That won't be easy, she warned. Only members of the royal bloodline can enter those areas. The guards will never let you through, Elias smiled faintly. Then maybe I shouldn't go alone. Soraya looked at him, realizing what he meant. You want me to come with you? I think we were brought together for a reason, Elias said softly. Maybe this is it. For a moment their eyes met, and the bond mark on their wrists glowed faintly in the dim light. The pulse was slow, steady, the same rhythm in both of them. All right, she said finally. Tomorrow we go together. The next day passed quietly on the surface, but tension filled the palace halls. The council met again to discuss trade and peace terms. But Elias could sense a strange energy in the air, a feeling that eyes were watching him from every corner. During a short break, he saw Lord Dareth, the noble with blue markings, speaking quietly to one of the guards. When their eyes met, Dareth gave him a thin smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. It sent a chill through Elias's chest. That night, Elias and Soraya slipped through a hidden door at the edge of the archives. The path led down into the old reactor chamber, a massive space filled with silent machines and dark crystal pipes. Blue energy flowed faintly through some of them like veins of light. Elias worked quickly, scanning the systems with his tools. It's all still here, he murmured. The technology is incredible. It's almost alive. Soraya helped where she could, reading symbols and activating controls. The two worked in harmony, their movements natural, their minds almost linked. At times, Elias didn't even need to speak. Soraya would react as if she already knew what he planned. It was as if their bond guided them. After hours of work, the chamber came to life. A low hum filled the air, and the conduits began to glow brighter. A circular platform in the center rose slowly, covered in runes. Elias smiled. We did it. It's working. But before they could celebrate, a voice echoed from the shadows. Impressive, human. They turned quickly. Lord Dareth stepped forward, surrounded by armored guards. His eyes glowed faintly with anger. So the rumors were true, he said coldly. The princess meets in secret with an off-worlder. And now I see why. The forbidden mark burns on your wrist. Soraya stepped forward. Lord Dareth, you have no right to be here. I have every right, he replied. You endanger our people, Soraya. You bring poison from another world and you dare to bond with it. Elias moved between them. She's trying to protect you, all of you. There's a rebellion coming, isn't there? You're part of it. Dareth smiled darkly. You understand quickly. The royal line has grown weak. We will restore Valoria's purity. He raised his hand and the guards drew their weapons. Soraya's mark flared suddenly, and Elias's did the same. A wave of energy burst between them, forming a shield of blue light that threw the guards backward. The power pulsed from their joined marks, glowing brighter and brighter. What is this? Dareth shouted, shielding his eyes. Soraya's voice was calm but strong. It's the bond. You cannot touch us. Elias grabbed her hand. We have to go, now! Together they ran toward the exit, their path lit by the glowing energy flowing through the tunnels. The guards shouted behind them, but the shield flared again each time they were near, blocking every attack. The bond guided their steps like a living force. When they finally reached the garden above, the night sky burned with the glow of approaching ships. Elias looked up in shock. The rebellion had begun. The palace alarms rang out across Ilarion. Soraya turned to Elias, her voice steady. They're attacking from within. We have to reach my father. Lead the way, Elias said, gripping his toolkit. And whatever happens, we face it together. As they ran through the shining halls, the mark on their wrists glowed brighter than ever, pulsing in the same rhythm. The bond had chosen them, not just to meet, but to fight for the future of both their worlds. The palace of Valoria was in chaos. Alarms echoed through crystal halls, warning of intruders and hidden dangers. Guards rushed to protect the royal chambers, while distant explosions shook the spires above. Through the chaos, Elias and Princess Soraya moved quickly, their bond guiding their steps like an unseen thread. "Stay close," Soraya whispered, her silver hair brushing against his arm. "We must reach my father. The council will decide everything. The rebellion, the humans, everything." Elias nodded. His heart pounded, not just from running, but from the weight of responsibility. He had never faced anything like this on Earth. The rebels weren't ordinary enemies. They were Valorians who knew the palace better than anyone else. Every corner could hide danger. Every shadow could hold a trap. As they approached the council hall, a group of armored guards barred their path. "Stop!" one shouted. "You cannot enter. The council will judge your actions." Soraya held up her hand, her eyes glowing faintly. The bond mark on her wrist pulsed, and Elias felt the energy travel through him. A gentle wave of force pushed the guards back just enough to let them pass. The palace halls were vast, and the two sprinted, guided by both instinct and connection. Inside the council hall, chaos erupted. Members shouted over one another. Some demanded the immediate exile of humans. Others argued for restraint. At the far end of the chamber sat King Velarin, Soraya's father. His expression was calm but stern, his eyes scanning the crowd as if reading their thoughts. When Soraya and Elias entered, the room fell silent. Every Valorian felt the pulse of their bond, the power of the mark glowing faintly in the dim light. Elias could see whispers passing between council members. Fear, curiosity, awe. No one had ever seen a human and Valorian connect in such a way. "Father," Soraya said, stepping forward. Her voice was steady, yet full of emotion. "This human, Elias Ward, is not our enemy. He is the reason I stand alive today. He saved me when the rebellion tried to attack." A murmur ran through the council hall. Some members frowned. Others looked shocked. Lord Dareth, seated at the far end, narrowed his eyes. "Saved her," he hissed. "With human trickery? You bring outsiders into the heart of our palace, and now you claim he protects you?" "Yes," Soraya said firmly. "And more. He shares a bond with me. We communicate. We work together. This is not trickery. It is truth." Elias swallowed. Speaking in front of the royal council was terrifying, but he stepped forward. "I am human," he said, voice steady. "I came to Valoria as a friend. I did not seek power or glory. I only wish to help. If the council doubts me, I accept judgment. But I ask you to see what happened today. The rebellion would have succeeded without us." The king's gaze softened. "Elias Ward," he said, "you stand not as a stranger, but as a protector. Yet many will not see it that way. The council fears change, fears humans. Your presence here challenges long-held beliefs." Lord Dareth rose slowly, his voice sharp. "The council fears correctly. One human cannot be trusted with Valoria's secrets. And now this bond, a dangerous mark from ancient times, appears in your presence. It threatens the very foundation of our laws. You must be punished." Soraya's eyes glowed brighter. "Father, stop him. Elias's bond mark saved my life and the palace. He is no threat, the rebels are." The king raised his hand, silencing everyone. His expression was serious. "We must judge both sides fairly. Elias Ward will be placed on trial for actions taken in the palace, and the princess will defend the truth. Let this trial decide whether humans and Valorians can share the future together, or remain divided." Elias felt his chest tighten. A trial was terrifying, but he could not deny it. This was the moment when the bond between him and Soraya would either protect them or destroy them. The trial was held in the Grand Chamber, a room larger than most cities on Earth. The walls were made of pure crystal, reflecting light and magnifying sound. Every noble of the council had a seat. The room was full, but everyone's attention focused on the two standing at the center, Elias and Sariah. The first to speak was Lord Dareth. This human has infiltrated the royal archives without permission. He has touched sacred artifacts, and he dares to claim a bond with the princess, an act forbidden by law. For these crimes, he should be exiled from Valoria forever. Sariah stepped forward, her calm voice echoing. Lord Dareth, you speak of laws that no longer serve the people. This human did not act against Valoria. He acted to save me, to protect the palace. The bond mark is not a curse. It is a gift, rare but real. It proves that two worlds can work together. Some council members whispered to one another. A few nodded slowly, their curiosity growing. Others frowned. Tradition held them back from seeing truth. Elias glanced at Sariah, her eyes steady and kind. He felt the strength of their connection pulse through him, the bond mark glowing softly on both wrists. I accept judgment, Elias said, but know this, the rebellion is real. If we do nothing, Valoria itself will be in danger. I can protect it. We can protect it. Together. Before the council could speak further, the palace shook. A low rumble echoed through the chamber. Alarm lights flickered, casting blue shadows across the walls. The rebels had begun their attack. Elias and Sariah exchanged a glance. Their bond pulsed, brightening. Elias felt her energy flow into him, calm, powerful, focused. Together they ran toward the palace gates, moving as one. Outside, chaos ruled. Guards clashed with rebels, using energy blades and shields. Ships hovered above, ready to land more attackers. Elias saw the scale of the threat. It was larger than he imagined. Without hesitation, he activated the shield system they had repaired earlier. A wave of blue light expanded, covering the main courtyard. The rebels were thrown back, their weapons blocked by the energy. Guards stared in shock. Even Lord Dareth faltered, realizing the bond mark was more than just a symbol. It was a power no one had seen for centuries. Elias, Sariah shouted, we must protect the king. If they reach him, everything is lost. They ran through corridors filled with glowing panels, dodging attacks. The bond pulsed with every step, guiding them around danger. When they reached the throne room, the king was unharmed, though his guards struggled to hold back the rebels. Father, Sariah said, rushing to his side, we can stop this together. The king looked at Elias, then back at his daughter. I see now. The bond is not a danger. It is a force for protection. You have saved this palace, Elias Ward. You have saved Valoria. Elias felt the words sink in. He had feared judgment, exile, even death. But instead, the king acknowledged his courage. The rebels faltered as the royal guards and the bond-powered shield pushed them back. Soon, the remaining attackers surrendered or fled. The trial ended, not with punishment, but with recognition. Elias had proven himself in the most dangerous way possible, not through speeches, but through action. The council, though hesitant, could not deny the truth. The bond between a human and a Valorian princess had protected the palace and saved countless lives. Sariah stood beside him, her hand brushing lightly against his. The bond mark glowed brighter than ever, signaling unity. Even Lord Dareth, defeated and silent, could not deny the power he had witnessed. The king addressed the council. Let this day be remembered. Courage, wisdom, and unity can come from any world. We must consider what the future holds, not what the past demanded. Elias Ward, you are honored by Valoria. Elias felt a mix of relief and pride. He had come to Valoria as a simple engineer, a visitor from a distant planet. Now, he was recognized as a protector, a bridge between worlds. And he had the princess by his side. As night fell over the palace, the city of Ilarion glowed softly beneath the stars. Soraya and Elias stood together on the balcony, where their story had first begun. The bond mark pulsed gently on both wrists, a quiet rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the city itself. Today was, Elias began, unsure how to describe everything. Unforgettable, Soraya finished for him. She smiled, and for the first time in many nights, she looked free from fear. Elias nodded. I never expected to come to Valoria and end up here, with you, saving the palace. You did more than that, Soraya said softly. You changed the hearts of those who doubted. You gave hope to my people, and to me. The wind blew gently, lifting her silver hair around her face. Elias reached out and took her hand. The bond mark glowed brighter, warm, and steady. For the first time, he felt that he truly belonged, not just on Valoria, but beside her. And somewhere in the shadows, the defeated rebels began to regroup, whispering plans of the future. But for now, Elias and Soraya stood together, ready to face whatever challenges came next. A human and a Valorian princess, united by destiny, courage, and a bond that could change two worlds forever. The city of Valerian was quiet in the early morning. Crystal towers reflected the soft light of Valoria's twin suns, casting a golden glow over the streets. After the rebellion had been stopped, the palace slowly returned to order. The council debated in the halls above, while the human delegation was given rooms to rest. But Elias and Princess Soraya were awake, standing together on a balcony that overlooked the city, their bond mark pulsing faintly on their wrists. This view never gets old, Elias said quietly, his hand brushing against hers. Even after everything, Valoria is beautiful, Soraya smiled softly. Yes, and now it is safe, at least for today. Her gaze turned serious. Elias, the council will need time to understand what happened. They are not used to change, and some of them still fear humans. Elias nodded. I understand. But they saw what we did. They saw the bond. And they saw the palace survive. Soraya looked down at the glowing mark on his wrist. It is more than a symbol. It is proof that two very different beings can work together. That hope exists, even between worlds. The next day, the king summoned Elias to the royal chamber. Soraya accompanied him, her presence calm and steady. The chamber was vast, its walls glowing softly as light bounced from the crystal floors. The king sat upon a high throne, his expression thoughtful. Around him, the council members remained silent, waiting for words of judgment. Elias Ward, the king began, your actions during the rebellion have shown courage and wisdom. You have protected my daughter, my palace, and my people. For this, you are recognized as a friend of Valoria. Elias bowed deeply, unsure how to respond. I only did what I could, Your Majesty. I did not expect recognition. The king's eyes softened as he looked at Soraya. And you, my daughter, have shown courage in defending your beliefs and the bond that has appeared. Your actions have proven that the future need not be bound by fear or tradition. Valoria can grow stronger with allies from other worlds, if we have the wisdom to embrace them. A murmur ran through the council. Some members looked uncomfortable. Others whispered among themselves, nodding in agreement. Even Lord Dareth, who had opposed Elias, was silent, his face unreadable. Elias, the king continued, the bond you share with Soraya is not merely a connection between two souls. It is a bridge between our worlds. If nurtured wisely, it may bring Valoria and Earth together in ways that no one thought possible. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. He had come to Valoria as a simple engineer, not knowing what lay ahead. Now standing before a king, a council, and a princess he had come to care for deeply, he realized that his life had changed forever. In the following weeks, the city of Valerian adjusted to a new reality. Valorians who had doubted humans began to see them differently. Traders, scholars, and ambassadors from Earth were welcomed more openly. The bond between Elias and Soraya became a symbol of hope, a reminder that cooperation, trust, and courage could overcome fear. Elias spent long hours helping improve palace systems, sharing human engineering knowledge with Valorian scholars. Soraya, meanwhile, guided him through Valoria's customs, teaching him how to navigate its culture and politics. Through it all, their bond grew stronger, allowing them to communicate silently when needed and share thoughts and feelings without words. One evening, as they walked through the glowing gardens of the palace, Soraya stopped and looked at Elias. Her eyes reflected the soft light of the bioluminescent trees. "Do you remember the first time you whispered to me during the ceremony?" she asked softly. Elias nodded, smiling faintly. "I thought you couldn't hear me." "I had no idea." "You were right," Soraya said. "I did hear you. And when I turned toward you, I felt something I could not explain. Like recognition, like destiny. And now," she reached out and took his hand. "Now I understand that it was not just a feeling. It was the bond marking our souls." Elias squeezed her hand gently. "I never imagined it would be like this. But I am glad. More than anything, I am glad." News of the rebellion's failure and the bond's revelation spread throughout Valoria. People whispered about the human who had saved the princess and the bond that defied centuries of tradition. Children spoke of them in wonder, imagining the glow of their mark and the courage it symbolized. Even among the council, opinions shifted. Many who had been skeptical now recognized the value of friendship with Earth. Alliances were reconsidered, trade routes expanded, and scholars began studying the bond phenomenon to learn how it could benefit Valoria. Elias and Soraya's influence went beyond the palace. Their story became a legend, told in crystal halls, classrooms, and markets. It was a story of courage, trust, and the strength found when different worlds came together. One quiet morning, Elias and Soraya stood at the highest balcony of the palace, looking out over the city. The twin sons of Valoria rose together, casting long beams of light across the towers. Their bond mark glowed faintly in unison, reflecting the light of the new day. "Do you ever wonder what will happen next?" Elias asked. Soraya smiled. "Yes, but I also know that whatever comes, we will face it together. The bond is not just about protection or power. It is about understanding, and the courage to embrace change." Elias looked at her, feeling a deep warmth he had never known. "Then we are ready," he said. The princess nodded. "Yes, together we are ready." As the weeks passed, Valoria embraced the new era. Humans worked alongside Valorians in research, trade, and culture. The old barriers that had divided the two worlds began to dissolve. And at the center of this change were Elias and Soraya, a human and a Valorian princess whose bond had become the symbol of hope. One evening, as the palace lights reflected across the glowing gardens, Elias spoke softly. "Do you remember the first night in the gardens when we discovered the bond mark?" Soraya nodded, her silver hair catching the moonlight. "I do. I also remember the first time it pulsed strongly, when we ran from the rebels. I realized then that we were connected in a way neither of us could deny." Elias smiled. "And now the bond has saved more than just the palace. It has saved a city, maybe even a world." Soraya looked at him, her eyes filled with light. "Yes, and it will continue to guide us. Not just to protect, but to teach, to show that courage, trust, and love are stronger than fear." He took her hand. "Then I will keep saying it every day if I must. You are the most beautiful princess I have ever seen." For the first time in his life, Elias felt that everything had fallen into place. The palace was safe, the people were hopeful, and he was not alone. Soraya smiled, a calm and warm smile that reflected trust, understanding, and a shared destiny. "And I will hear it," she said softly. "Always." The bond mark pulsed once more, stronger and brighter than ever. The human and the princess stood together on the balcony, watching the sunrise over Ilarion. Their worlds, once separate, now began a journey together. The bond that had started as a whisper had grown into a force that could change the future, a bridge between Valoria and Earth. In time, the story of Elias and Soraya became a legend, told across planets and generations. It was a story not of conquest or fear, but of courage, unity, and the enduring power of connection. The human who whispered words of admiration, and the princess who turned toward him had changed not just their lives, but the destiny of two worlds. And under the glowing skies of Valoria, the bond mark shone, a quiet pulse of hope that promised a future where different worlds could meet, understand, and thrive together.